When Lauren told me she needed a break, it was a warm Sunday afternoon. We were sitting on our modest backyard porch, sipping coffee from our mismatched mugs. The sky was clear, and our dog, Milo, darted around joyfully, snapping at bees and rolling in the grass. Nothing in that moment screamed goodbye, yet that's precisely what it became. "I don't really know who I am anymore," she whispered, almost as if afraid of her own words. "I just need some time to breathe. Not forever. Just a month or two." I didn't react right away. I let the silence hang between us, my eyes fixed on the hairline crack in my ceramic cup while leaves whispered in the breeze. We'd been together nearly 4 years, engaged for 9 months, and our wedding was only 10 weeks away. Her tone wasn't the frantic kind that comes from cold feet. It was calm, rehearsed, as if she'd practiced it many times before. She added, "I still love you. I do. But I've been with you since college. I want to be sure this is right. I want to know myself before I say, I do." I gave a slight nod and told her, "Take whatever time you need. No pleading, no drama, no guilt." I let her leave without resistance. She looked taken aback. Maybe she thought I'd fight, try to convince her to stay. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about finding herself. It was about exploring what else might be out there, with me as the backup plan. That evening, she took a few bags and moved in with her friend Julia, who lived downtown in a flashy apartment tower. Lauren said she'd still be involved with the wedding prep, but also needed room to be herself. The following weeks were quiet on my end. No messages, no calls from her. But her social media told a very different story. I stopped checking at first. Then friends began forwarding me screenshots. Nightlife pictures, brunches, group trips, new faces. Captions like, "Living my truth," and "Finding my joy." And yes, there were men. Not hugging or kissing, but close enough to tell she wasn't mourning our pause. I never reached out to ask why. What was the point? She was living her life unapologetically. And that's when I made a quiet, internal shift. Not out of anger or revenge, but because I finally understood. When someone tells you they're unsure about a future with you, believe them, and move on. So while she searched for herself, I began organizing my exit. I owned the condo we shared. Bought it years ago before we even met. A real estate agent had recently approached me with interest from developers looking to invest in the area. I called her back. She put out feelers, and within a week I had an offer 20% over market value. I accepted without hesitation. I boxed up everything Lauren had left, her clothes, her art, even her beloved wine glasses. I rented a storage unit in her name and dropped everything there. Then I moved to a quiet apartment on the opposite side of town. I left no note, no clue, just vanished. 6 weeks passed before I heard from her. A simple text, "Hey, I miss you. Can we talk?" I saw it while heating up dinner but let it sit unanswered. She called a few days later. "Hey," she said gently, like nothing had ever happened. Her voice carried hesitation. "I was thinking I could stop by this weekend, just to talk." I responded calmly, "You can't. I don't live there anymore." Dead silence. Then, "What do you mean?" "I sold the condo," I replied. Her breath hitched. "You sold our home?" I corrected her. "It was my home. I bought it alone." She grew frantic. "But my stuff is still there." I answered with steady words. "It's in a storage unit. You should have got an email with the details." And then I ended the call. That opened the floodgates. Messages from her family, angry voicemails, even her cousin reached out. Suddenly I was the villain, impulsive, cold, the one who didn't wait. But let's be honest. She wasn't taking time to reflect. She was living as if our commitment had never existed. Dancing in rooftop bars, laughing with strangers, celebrating her newfound freedom while I sat in silence. And now that the thrill had died down, she wanted to walk back in as if nothing had changed. I didn't respond. I owed her no explanation. If you tell someone you're unsure about marrying them weeks before the wedding, they have every right to make that decision permanent. Eventually, she showed up at my new place, unannounced. She looked worn down, less radiant than her social media persona. I didn't think you'd move on so fast, she said softly. You didn't think there'd be consequences, I replied. Her eyes fell. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you. I just needed to figure things out. I nodded. I understand. But you can't put someone on hold while you chase other versions of yourself. She asked, so what now? I looked at her and spoke honestly. Now you live with what you chose. She asked to meet again in a few weeks. I declined. She asked if there was someone else. There wasn't. But that wasn't the point. I wasn't hers anymore. I had given her everything for 4 years. But once she made me optional, she lost the privilege of being part of my story. From friends, I later heard she moved back home. Her family was angry about the wedding being canceled. Not because of me, but because of the deposits lost. She hadn't told them the whole truth, just that we were working through things. That lie didn't hold long. Lauren didn't want a break to reflect. She wanted to pretend she was young and untethered again. And that's okay. Everyone deserves a chance to grow. But growth comes with choices, and choices come with consequences. Marriage is hard work, not just vows and rings. There's bills, bad days, shared responsibilities. If you want the wedding, you have to want the weight that comes after. She didn't learn that lesson in time. And when she finally did, I was already gone. I rebuilt quietly, focused on work, joined a climbing gym, caught up with friends I'd neglected. Eventually, I dated casually. Nothing serious. Just shared meals, honest laughs, and calm moments. I used the money from the condo wisely, invested most, saved some, traveled a bit. I don't hate Lauren. Not anymore. I don't even resent her. She wanted a life that didn't include me. That's okay. But you can't expect to return to a relationship after stepping out of it and find it unchanged. One of our old friends mentioned she still talks about me sometimes. Said she called my actions cold. Maybe they were. Or maybe they were just clear. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do is make it obvious that choices have weight. I wasn't her back burner option. I wasn't a safety net. I deserved someone who chose me every day, not someone who needed time to decide. So when she said, I need time to find myself, I gave her time. I just didn't stay in place while she searched. Months drifted by like leaves carried away by a river I no longer felt the need to wade through. The messages from her stopped entirely, and the silence that once felt so loud eventually became a peaceful companion. It wasn't that I had found someone new or even that I'd moved on in a fairy tale kind of way. No, it was just that I'd grown into myself without her. I had spent years being half of a we, forgetting what it felt like to stand on my own 2 feet without looking over my shoulder. Now I had my balance back. I woke up each morning without the ache of waiting for a call, without the bitterness of remembering how easily I was put on pause. I traveled alone, sat in quiet cafes, read books I had shelved for years, and let myself breathe again without apologizing for it. Then, one afternoon while walking home through the park, I spotted a familiar smile from across the way. It wasn't her, but someone with that same flicker of curiosity in her eyes. We talked briefly, strangers who felt like they'd missed each other in another life. And it wasn't romantic. Not yet, but it was honest. And that honesty meant more to me than all the maybes I'd lived through with Lauren. I no longer needed grand gestures or hollow promises dressed as clarity. I just needed someone who saw me as I was, not as a placeholder for what they might want later. That's what healing really looked like. Not revenge. Not vindication. Just quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice when I chose to walk away without turning back. So, if you've ever been the one left waiting, if you've ever been asked to freeze your life so someone else can figure theirs out, know this: you deserve to be more than someone's intermission. You deserve a love that doesn't waver when things get real, a partner who chooses you loudly every day, not just when they've run out of other options. When Lauren told me she needed space, I gave it to her. Not out of weakness, but strength. And in that space, I found my own worth. I hope wherever she is now, she's still discovering who she is. Because I already know who I am, and I'm not going back. If this story hit home, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because you deserve better, and sometimes walking away is the real beginning.